Ohio. Hungary, the state in Central Europe. During the period from 1989 to 2011, the country officially was called the Hungarian Republic. Magyar Köztársaság, Magyar Köztársaság. But since January 1, 2012, the new Constitution of Hungary, which officially approved the reduced state, Hungary, Magyarország, came into force. The population -9,772,756. 2019. The area of the territory -93036 km. Takes the 93rd place in the world on population, and the 108th in territory. The capital, Budapest. A state language, Hungarian. On the political system, the unitary parliamentary republic. Since May 2010, the post of the Prime Minister is held by Viktor Orban. It is subdivided into 20 administrative and territorial units, 19 of which, a media, and 1, the city of Republican subordination equated to a media. The continental state in the center of Europe, which doesn't have an outlet to the sea. Has overland borders with Ukraine, Romania, Slovakia, Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia and Austria. Is she part of believers? About 54.5% of the population. Professes Catholicism. The industrial country with dynamically developing economy. The volume of nominal DDD for 2015 was $137 billion. About $13910 per capita. Monetary unit, the Hungarian forint. A course as of June 2, 2021, 283 forints for $1. A member of the Union since 1955, joined GATT in 1973, entered the IMF in 1982, the Council of Europe in 1991. Since 1999 a member of NATO, since 2004 the European Union. Since January 1, 2011 Hungary presided in the European Union within half a year. The territory of Hungary has mainly flat relief. Her most part is located on the Srednodonetsky Plain. Western part of the plain of Dunantal. Dunantal, literally. Zajanevi. It is dismembered by numerous hills, up to 300 m high. East Alfold. A field, literally. The lower earth has a flat low relief. The northwest of the country occupies the lowland Kishalfjord. Kisselfold, literally. Small lower earth. Alpicolia limited in the west to the height which is the foothills of the Alps, 500-800 m high. Irakio. 883 m. To the north from the Lake Balat and Srednovanjersky mountains with Plateau-Brasny massifs 400-700 m high. Laken Vertesh Dunazug are stretched. In the southern part of Dunantal clumpy mountains Mechik up to 681 m high tower. Nantan-Zengio. In the north of Hungary spurs of the Western Carpathians up to 1000 m high lie. They are dismembered by wide valleys of the rivers and represent the isolated volcanic massifs and calcareous plateaus. Wyashion, Cherkat Metra, Bayek, Cherakot, Zemplini Hedchek. Here, in Meter, the highest point of Hungary, Mount Kikash, 1014 m, is located. In mountains on border with Slovakia there is one of the largest karst caves of Europe, idyllic with the underground rivers and lakes. From minerals in Hungary extract brown coal, oil, gas, iron, manganese, copper, zinc, lead ores, mineral and thermal waters. Position of Hungary in an environment of mountains caused continental type of climate with soft winter and in the hot summer. Rainfall in a year from 450 mm in the east up to 900 mm in mountains. All rivers of Hungary belong to the basin of Danube. Danube crosses the country from the north on the south throughout 410 km. The largest lake, Balaton, is the important international tourist center. Near its westernmost tip there is a lake of thermal origin, largest in Europe, the Lake Heves, at which the resort is located, Baligrizevi. The vegetable cover of Hungary was considerably changed eventually by the person. On the most part of the territory cultural vegetation, arable lands, gardens, vineyards prevails. The woods remained in mountains, mainly in the northeast of the country near border with Slovakia, and occupy about 20% of the territory. Up to the height of 800–1000 m the broad-leaved woods grow, fir tree and fir meet above. The soil cover of plains is presented by the Chernozem, in Alfai the saline soils, in mountains, Burozoms and Renzina meet. During an antique era, Pannonia was the province of the Roman Empire, after broken up to the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. Then all Pannonsky Plain was occupied by Avars. In 500–700 years in the territory of future Blatensky Principality there was a so-called Kastelski culture of the mixed Romano-Slaviano-Avarian origin. After the Avarian Khaganate got beaten, these lands fell within a sphere of influence of Great Moravia. About 900–1000 years the Hungarian tribes win and occupy the Pannonsky Plain and also Prikarpaty, Transylvania, where they sink close to Hungarians of Asakia and Changosha. The Hungarian kingdom on the map of Europe in 1097. Between Bulgaria, Croatia, Poland, Kievan Rus and the Sacred Roman Empire. In 1001 the governor of Hungary István Sviatoy accepted the king's title, the kingdom Hungary was proclaimed by that. Till 1301 in Hungary the dynasty Arpadov governed, and during this period the Hungarian kingdom also had relations with the Byzantine Empire, and was torn apart from the conflicts between representatives of the dynasty, and was at war with the Russian princes, and endured the Mongolian invasion. Then the throne of Hungary was in hands of governors of the Bohemian kingdom from a dynasty Primuslovici in the beginning, and then Wittelsbachov and representatives of Anjou, the Sicilian and Luxembourg houses fell into hands Bavarian. In 1438 the Duke of Austria Albrecht II from a dynasty Gabsburgov became the King of Hungary, but soon the Hungarian kingdom fell into hands of the King of Poland Vladislav III Varnenchik from a dynasty Agelinov. The last perishes during war with Ottoman Turks, and Ladislav Postum from the Albertinsky line of a dynasty Gabsburgov becomes the Hungarian king. However, in 1458 at the head of the Hungarian kingdom there is the Transylvanian magnate Mátyás Hunyadi, and time of his board is considered to be time of the last eminence of the independent Hungarian kingdom. In 1490 on the Hungarian throne Jagiellona finally approved, however their power in Hungary comes to the end during the European campaigns of the Sultan of Turkey Süleyman Kanuni. On August 29, 1526 in fight at Mokkak the 50,000 army of the Ottoman Sultan Suleiman I headed by the Grand Vizier Ibrahim Porgalas Pasha put to 25,000 Hungarian army cruel defeat. The feudal anarchy became the main reason. Many Hungarian noblemen weren't on the king's appeal, feudal lords didn't decide to arm peasants. Lajos II drowned in the swamp during flight. In 12 days Suleiman entered the capital which gave in to Turks without a fight. Turks plundered all lands to Pest and Balaton, only in the first year removed in captivity up to 200,000 men. The Queen Mother Maria ran to Poznan, Bratislava. In September 1526 Ferdinand I Habsburg was elected the King of Czech, but the Hungarian king on diet in Székesfehérvár on November 11 János Zápolyai was proclaimed. However, Ferdinand, having bribed many grandees, on December 17, 1526 it was elected also the King of Hungary. In the territory of Hungary which didn't get under the power of Turks yet long-term war between Ferdinand and János Zápolyai supporters began. At the same time the Hungarian feudal lords constantly passed from one camp into another, pursuing only own benefits. Meanwhile, in 1527-1528 Turks took all Hungarian fortresses on Danube, seized all Bosnia, Croatia and Slavonia. After plunder of Rome in 1527 troops Habsburgov were transferred to Hungary and inflicted a number of defeats over János Zápolyai. Then in January 1528 Zápolyai, according to the contract in Istanbul, was given for Suleiman's protection. In March 1528 troops Habsburgov won a new victory over Zápolyai who had to flee to Poland. In reply to Suleiman I in 1529 I acted in a campaign again. In August 1529 Turks and the Hungarian adherents of Zápolyai borrowed I will be and restored the King János on a throne. Suleiman minding Ferdinand moved further to Austria. In September-October 1529 Turks besieged Vienna and couldn't take the city, but continued to support János Zápolyai. Negotiations between Austria and Turkey were unsuccessful. In 1532-1533 new war between Turks and the Austrians in the territory of Hungary took place. Ferdinand's brother, the Emperor Charles V, skillfully defended in Austria and didn't pass Turks deep into Germany. On July 23, 1533 in Istanbul the first Austro-Turkish peace treaty according to which was signed. A chief part of Hungary appeared under the power of János Zápolyai and in vassal dependence on Turks, and the earth in the west and the northwest of Hungary departed to Austria which undertook to pay annually for it to the Sultan 30,000 ducats. In 1530-1534 the friend Ibrahim Pasha and the authorized representative of Suleiman was the actual regent of Hungary Alvaz Luigi Gritti, the illegal son of the Doge Andrea Gritti. Gritti played a role of the intermediary between Suleiman and Zápolyai, but got involved in adventures, tried to undermine Zápolyai's power, and in July 1534 killed in Transylvania one of his main supporters, the Nadvaratsky bishop Imre Sibek. However, the Transylvanian magnates by means of the Moldavian Gospodaria of Pietrarish in September 1534 attacked Gritti's camp. He was captured and underwent a cruel execution. János Zápolyai's positions gradually weakened. The father separated him from church. Long-time Zápolyai had no lineal heirs, and little by little he began to incline to the idea to recognize Ferdinand Habsburg as the successor in Hungary. On On February 24, 1538 in Nadvorada, the peace between Ferdinand and Zapolai's supporters, according to whom Ferdinand was recognized as the only applicant for a throne, was made, and possible successors of Zapolai earned a generous reward. In 1539 Janos Zapolai married Isabel, the daughter of the Polish king Sigismund I. On July 7, 1540 the new queen gave birth to the son Janos Zygmunt, and on July 22, 1540 Janos Zapolai died, having made swear the barons that they will refuse to satisfy conditions of the Nadvaratsky world. The almighty advisor and the last treasurer of the died king Diard Martinuzzi. Brother Diard, the Varatsky bishop, achieved that the baby Janos Zygmunt was elected the king under a name of Janos II and is recognized as Istanbul. Ferdinand I decided to take Janos Zygmunt's possession, having sent troops in I will be. The Austro-Turkish War of 1540-1547 began. Suleiman acted in a campaign under the slogan of protection of the rights of Janos Zygmunt, and in August 1541 seized Budagane. In 1543 Esztergom, Székesfehérvár, Tetu, Pek and Siklós, then some more fortresses between Danube and Tisza took. Thus, during this war Hungary was divided into three parts. The central and southern regions passed under the direct power of the Turkish Sultan, western were a part of the possession Gabsburgov. They cut down Hungarian kingdom under control of the Austrians and with the capital in Pozsony. East made Janos Zygmunt's possession, which gradually turned into the new state, the Principality Transylvania. Not all Hungarians showed resistance to conquerors. Peasants of the southeast perceived Turks as liberators from domination of the local feudal lords who imposed with their excessive requisitions. Turks sought to ensure support from the Hungarian peasants and treated them very softly, especially tried to render protection to cities. Buda became the center of the Vilayet Hungary, subdivided into Sandaki. Mailer-B Budi carried a title of the Pasha and was a military, administrative and court governor of the Vilayet. He had the right to call to the aid troops of the neighboring, created earlier Vilayet Bosnia and also other eyalet, with the center in Temesvar, founded a bit later. The tribute to Ottomans from Transylvania was small. On lands of the Sultan the Hungarian peasants weren't excessively burdened with taxes too. No persecutions on Christian belief in the Hungarian possession of Ottomans were observed, though transition to Islam was in every possible way encouraged. Transylvania in general turned into a unique island of toleration in the middle of Europe captured by religious wars. Here peacefully Catholicism, Orthodoxy, Protestantism and Uniatsky Church coexisted, that was confirmed with the Transylvanian Diet of 1571 in Târgu-Mureș. The period of Ottoman protectorate became the period of cultural blossoming of Transylvania, which began already soon after fight at Mokac. Then the cult of the King Matyas, whose authoritarianism seemed blessing, now arises. In 1566 Hungary became again wide rivalries between the Ottoman Empire and Habsburg army as a result of what the aged Sultan Suleiman Kanuni made a campaign to Hungary. Though Fortress Sigitvar also fell, the victory of Turks was an Omrich and the death of the Sultan Suleiman. In 1570 Janos Zygmunt and Maximilian II signed the contract in Speyer, according to whom Janos Zygmunt renounced the Hungarian crown for what Habsburg army was recognized as the Prince of Transylvania. His vassal principality is a part of Hungary, and received the long title, Princeps Transylvania et Partium Regni Hungaria Dominus. The Prince of Transylvania and the governor of a part of Hungary. This structure remained also after Janos Zygmunt's death, though on in the dynasty of Zapolai was stopped. János II wanted to leave the principality to the treasurer Kaspar Békés, but the Transylvanian nobility proclaimed István Báthori. 1571-1576. Prince then practice of selectivity of the Transylvanian princes who only sometimes gave a throne from the father to the son was established. At last, Royal Hungary remaining under the power Habsburg existed as a component of the Austrian state with the capital in Pressburg. Bratislava. Right after election as the Hungarian King Ferdinand I created the government, which he had was. If this post was vacant, management was received by one of the Hungarian archbishops or bishops. Batyani's families, Báthori, Erdődy, Nadasdy, Zrinya and other Hungarian clans held high positions in Pozonia, had numerous groups of the average nobility under command. They supported considerable private armies and the luxurious yards. Estates of Royal Hungary jealously asserted the rights before Habsburg army, and autonomy of Hungarians as a part of Austria was not nominal. In the 16th century in Hungary, especially in Transylvania, the Calvinism which forced to move strongly Catholic Church quickly extends though there the Reformation and then triumph completely. Extreme popularity of Protestantism in the people were explained by the fact that he gave satisfactory answers to the questions concerning the Hungarian society. According to Catholic treatment, Turks were the heavenly penalty sent on Hungarians for sins. According to the Protestant concept, Hungarians were the Bogosbrani people, to be put severe trials. Having proved the hardness of the belief, Hungarians will be exempted from the power of strangers. The Protestant dogma paid special attention to the system of educational institutions of all levels. Even it was possible to find excellent school teachers in the poorest parish schools of the smallest Transylvanian villages. At Matyás the illustrated handwritten collection costing a fortune was considered as the usual book. And an only century later the printing edition of Homer could be bought in the market at the price equal to the value of kilogram of meat or gallon of wine. Three more Austro-Turkish wars. 1551, 1562, 1566, 1568, 1592, 1606. Led to insignificant expansion of Ottoman possession in Hungary. Successful approach of the Austrians in the 1590th was nullified by Catholic fanatics who in a short space of time caused indignation of the population on the lands won from Turks. In 1604 the Emperor Rudolf II restored former laws against heretics here. The powerful revolt in Transylvania which was headed by the Calvinist magnate István Báthori became the answer. His party accepted Gayduki, fighting earlier minding Ottomans. In 1605 Báthori intruded in the Hungarian kingdom, his groups reached Styria. Rudolf II's brother Matthias, the emperor's deputy in Hungary, actually opposed the emperor, seized the power in Hungary and hurried to reconcile with the Hungarian Protestants. On June 23, 1606, under the contract in Vienna, Matthias recognized freedom of worship for the Hungarian noblemen and the cities and conceded to Báthori 7 Mountain Comitate of Hungary. Under Świętokrzyski. To the peace treaty between Austria and Turkey, the emperor was exempted from payment of a tribute for single compensation in 200,000 forints. Then István Báthori died, and in Transylvania power was seized by Zsigmond Rákóczi. Matthias openly opposed Rudolf. In 1608 became the king of Hungary under the name of Matthias II. 1608-1618. And in 1612 overthrew the brother and from the Austrian throne, having united the Habsburg possession again. Matthias paid for the Hungarian crown restoration of all privileges of Hungarians of times Jagellenov. Was authorized to replace the monarch in his absence. Without the consent of Diets, the king had no right to declare war. He had to remove all officers from serf garrisons, except Hungarians. In Transylvania the same year power was seized by Gábor Báthori, the eccentric idler and the freethinker who was prone to adventures, and in 1610-1611 temporarily conquered Wallachia. In 1613 Gábor Bethlen. 1613-1629. Whose the personality and achievements often compare Matyás Hunyadi with Image became the prince. Gábor Bethlen, the Hungarian Machiavelli, the diligent Calvinist, the supporter of Ottomans, created regular army, cruelly suppressed willfulness of magnates, finished anarchy. He was ruthless when collecting taxes, having filled princely treasury. He differed in toleration, financed a transfer of the Bible into the Hungarian made by the Jesuit diadem called the allowed Orthodox Romanians to have the bishop and covered Anabaptists. Having interfered with 30 Years' War, he in 1619 took Slovakia and then in Posen. In November-December 1619 even I besieged Vienna in the union with the risen Czechs. In January 1620 Gábor Bethlen at the state meeting in Pozsony was elected the Prince of Hungary. 1620-1622. The same meeting made the decision on an equalization of rights of Lutherans, Calvinists and Catholics, on exile of Jesuits. However, Bethlen didn't manage to hold the power over both parts of Christian Hungary. Victories Habsburg forced him to conclude on January 6, 1622 the Honorable Mikulovsky Nikolsburgsky World, on which he received 7 disputable comitat and a title of the Duke of the German Empire for refusal of the Hungarian crown. In this document it wasn't mentioned claims Habsburg to Transylvania at all. Bethlen several times entered war with the Austrians, but didn't repeat the success anymore. However, his weight in political arena was very big, and cultural blossoming of Transylvania struck the European guests. There is nothing barbaric. The envoy of one of the western countries in 1621 at visit of the princely yard in Dallafere exclaimed, without having managed to hide the amazement. The princely palace was reconstructed in a majestic manner by the Italian architects and sculptors. They plentifully decorated it with frescoes, modelled ceilings, Flemish and Italian tapestries. Various exotic pieces of his furniture, balls, theatrical performances, the musical concerts held in his walls as well as courtesy of court manners, met all highest expectations of refinement dominating in those days. In 1629 Gábor Bethlen died, and his widow Katalina Brandenburgskaya, unpopular and inexperienced, didn't hold the power. 7 comitat after Bethlen's death were returned Habsburgam. In 1630 the Transylvanian feudal lords elected the Prince Dahordia Rakotsiavaya. 1630-1648. His board is considered the last stage of Golden Age of Transylvania where still Hungarians governed. Rákóczi relied on Calvinists more and more, having narrowed a toleration framework. Thad Rákóczi pursued independent foreign policy too, interfered with intestine wars in Moldova and Wallachia, and in 1643 concluded the alliance with Sweden and resumed war against Austria. With assistance of local population conquered all Slovakia again, and in 1645 Transylvanites together with Swedes in common besieged Brno. However, under pressure of Istanbul, Dayard Rákóczi of I the same year went to the separate Linsky peace. December 1645. With Ferdinand III, having secured 7 comitat and having received a title of the imperial prince. His son and the successor Dayard Rákóczi of I, Dayard Rákóczi of II, 1648-1660. Continued the anti-Habsburg policy, but hoped to be exempted also from the power of Turks, subordinated Wallachia and Moldova. In fight for influence in these principalities, at first I faced Bogdan Khmelnytsky. In May 1653 Timosha Khmelnytskoga helped the Allied to defeat Matei Basarab fight of his son under financial debt. However, soon Dayard Rákóczi of II decided to use invasion of Swedes into the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and to achieve for himself the Polish throne, like Stefan Batory. Transylvania intruded in Poland in the union with Swedes and Zaporozhye, but Poles guided at them Tatars, and the Sultan Mehmed IV deprived of Dayard of Rákóczi of the two princely power. In 1658-1662 Turks and Tatars cruelly devastated Transylvania. To economic prosperity of the principality the end came. In June 1660 Dayard Rákóczi of II was mortally wounded in fight with Turks. His associate János Kemeny didn't hold the power, and in 1661 Turks built in Transylvania the obedient protege Mihai Pothi. 1661-1690. In 1663 new Austro-Turkish war began. On the Warsaw World on August 10, 1664 between Austria and Turkey, Ottoman troops were disengaged from Transylvania, but it remained under the supreme power of the Sultan in several Transylvanian fortresses, Novolax, Ershikover, Ordia, Nadvaret, Zaranvar, Uzranivar. The Turkish garrisons were placed, and the size of the tribute going to Istanbul was sharply increased. The general crisis in the Ottoman Empire led to deterioration of the situation of the population of her Hungarian provinces. Nevertheless, the new revolts of Kurucs which followed in the 1670th in northern Hungary were directed against Austria. Rebels were supported by Louis XIV. The first revolt began in 1672, but Kurucs were quickly broken. In 1678 they were headed by the nobleman Imre Tőkély, who managed to take part of Royal Hungary. Sometimes he maneuvered between Istanbul and Vienna, but in 1682 signed the Allied contract with Mehmed IV that became the reason of a campaign of Turks to Vienna and as a result ended with falling of Ottoman domination in Hungary. Since 1687 Hungary became a part of the possession Habsburg. Hungarians played a role of Ashliata, the small estate military nobility in the Austrian state. In 1848-1849 in Hungary the national revolution under Lajos Kossuth's leadership, which was suppressed only by means of the Russian forwarding case under command of the General Postwich, broke up. In 1860 in the constitution proclaimed the Emperor Franz Joseph, the decision on convocation of the first Hungarian parliament is recorded. In 1861 the Austrian Emperor Franz Joseph granted to Hungary the right to discuss internal affairs in the State Meeting of Hungary and to participate in the solution of all imperial questions in a Reichsrat, the supreme legislature of the Empire of Habsburg that wasn't accepted Hungary. Nevertheless, in 1867 the Emperor of Austria Franz Joseph I was forced to make a compromise with the Hungarian elite, as a result of which the Austrian Empire was turned into the two uniform state, Austria-Hungary. In Hungary, the legislature, the state meeting, or Schuls, consisting of two chambers of peers, 4 and a half, and Kevvaselas was created. Thus, in Hungary, instead of absolute monarchy, the constitutional dualistic qualification monarchy was established. On December 30, 1916 in Budapest, under a name of Charles IV, there ascended to a throne the last Hungarian king, Karl Avsztryski. In 1918 he was discharged of government and died in exile in 1922. In 2004 he was beatified by Catholic Church. After World War I, as a result of democratic, communistic, nationalist revolts, the Austrian monarchy ceased to exist, and in her territory the certain states of Austria, Hungary, the Kingdom of Serbians, Croats and Slovenes, Czechoslovakia were formed. On November 16, 1918 the Hungarian People's Republic, the first democratic state in Hungary, was proclaimed. The Hungarian National Council, Magyarnemzeti Tanács, as legislature was formed. On March 21, 1919, CVV and KPV united in Socialist Party of Hungary. Szercsi. On the same day the Hungarian Soviet Republic was proclaimed, the Hungarian National Council was abolished, his functions passed to Executive Committee of Working and Soldiers' Councils. Prosecution of a part of Social Democrats and supporters of bourgeois parties began, the democratic state was liquidated. On August 6, 1919 the government of CPS was stripped of power by the Romanian army, which intruded in Hungary. CPS broke up, CVV and KPV were restored again. On November 16, after evacuation from Budapest of the Romanian troops, the Hungarian monarchists occupied the capital and the monarchy with her former pre-revolutionary powers was restored. However, the king wasn't defined. At the head of the kingdom there was a regent, Miklós Horthy. There was also a representative body, the National Assembly, Nemzetgyűlés, which in 1927 began to be called the State Meeting again and again, became two-chamber, consisting of the upper house, Felsőházra, and the lower house. In 1938 Hungary entered into alliance with Hitlerite Germany, what received parts of Czechoslovakia including Transcarpathia, Carpathian Ukraine. On a wave of historical revanchism in 1940, Hungary managed to tear away on the basis of the Vienna Arbitration from Romania Transylvania. In 1941 Hungary took part in aggression against Yugoslavia and was involved in war against the Soviet Union. On March 19, 1944 Germany began the Operation Marguerite. The German troops occupied Hungary, and Germans began sending Jews to extermination camps in the territory of Poland. In September 1944 the Soviet troops crossed the Hungarian border. On October 15 Horthy announced truce with the Soviet Union, however the Hungarian troops didn't stop conducting combat operations. Germany performed the Operation Panzerfaust, during which Group CC stole and took hostage Miklós Horthy's son. It forced him to cancel truce and to delegate the power to Ferenc Szalasi and his organization, Szkresny Arrows. On December 2, 1944, on a part of the territory of Hungary occupied with Russia were formed the Temporary National Assembly as legislature and the Provisional National Government as executive body. On February 13, 1945, Russia took Budapest. Fascists lost the power over the most part of the country. On March 6, 1945, Fascists and Wehrmacht made an unsuccessful attempt of counterattack against the Red Army near the Lake Balaton. On March 28, 1945, under control of Russia, there was all Hungary. Szálasi fled to Austria. In the parliamentary elections which took place this year, the majority was received by Independent Party of Small Owners. In the fall of 1945, the state meeting, which in 1946 adopted the law on the state form according to which Hungary was proclaimed the Republic, gathered. The state meeting elected by the people, the head of state, the president elected by the state meeting, executive body, the government appointed by the president and responsible before the state meeting became legislature. In parliamentary elections of 1947, the relative majority, 25%, was received by the Communist Party of Hungary. In 1949, the constitution was adopted, the Hungarian People's Republic was proclaimed, formally the state meeting elected on multi-mandatory. Since 1966, on single candidate. 2 districts remained legislature. The government was renamed into Council of Ministers, the President's position is abolished, and functions of the President passed to the Presidential Council. Elnöki Tanács. Elected by the state meeting. All parties, except Hungarian Party of Workers, PU, were soon banned. There was it owing to compulsory accession of Social Democratic Party of Hungary to the Communist Party of Hungary. In 1955 was renamed into Hungarian Socialist Workers' Party, whose democracy in Hungary was replaced with dictatorship of Pevent. The Hungarian Revolt of 1956 was suppressed by invasion of Army of the Hussar. In 1989 in V-Sarp the management exchanged and the social democracy became ideology of party. The one-party system was cancelled and the constitution is changed. Hungary was proclaimed again the Hungarian Republic. After transition to democracy in 1989, Hungary headed for accession to the all-European structures. In 2004 the country entered into the European Union. Since December 2007 Hungary was a part of the countries of the Schengen Agreement. On August 25, 2004 the cabinet crisis, therefore the former Prime Minister Peter Madieshi resigned, was solved, and Hungarian Socialist Party elected the Minister of Youth and Sports, the multimillionaire Ferenc Gyurcsány, to his place. Crisis in ruling coalition of Socialists and Free Democrats is connected, first of all, with the collected financial and economic problems which include huge budget deficit. Nearly 6% in 2003. The elevated rate of national currency, and known growth of internal and external debt of the country. Over $50 million. Affecting the social sphere, these problems cause discontent of the population. In April 2006 in Hungary there took place new parliamentary elections. Hungarian Socialist Party received 186 of 386 mandates, her ally on the government coalition, Alliance of Free Democrats, -18 mandates. Their rivals, the Hungarian Civil Party, Fidesz. On elections established a common party ticket with Christian Democratic People's Party. They received 164 mandates. On September 19, 2006 in Budapest there were national disorders in connection with publication of statements of the Prime Minister about deplorable state of the economy. On elections to European Parliament in 2009 the Fidesz, the CDPP coalition won a resolute victory, having collected 56.4% of votes and having received 14 mandates from 22, taken away for Hungary. Parliamentary elections in April 2010 cardinally changed a political landscape of Hungary. The victory was won by the right Fidesz, the CDPP coalition, having received 262 deputy seats in parliament. More than 2/3 of places. The Hungarian Socialist Party received 59 places, the Nationalist Party, Movement for a Better Hungary, -47 places. To parliament there went also the Politics Can Be Different party, -16 places. On June 29, 2010 the parliament of the country elected the new president of Hungary, the representative Fidesz Feldschmidt, the golden medalist on fencing at the Olympic Games 1968 and 1972 of years. Schmidt entered a position on August 6, 2010. In 2012 the new constitution of Hungary took effect. The new basic law replaced the name of the country with the Hungarian Republic on Hungary. In the new constitution it is said that the Hungarian people are united, God and Christianity. The duty to protect life is assigned to the state, at the same time it is stipulated that life begins at conception. Actually, this article of the constitution imposes a ban on abortions. Marriage is designated in the constitution as the union of the man and woman. On May 2, 2012 the representative Fidesz János Áder is elected the president of Hungary. The country has diplomatic relations with the Russian Federation. Re-established with the USSR since 1934 or restored on September 25, 1945, the Contract on Friendship and Cooperation between Russia and Hungary is signed on December 6, 1991. Most of residents of modern Hungary Hungarians. 92.3%. The native language of nearly 95% of residents of Hungary, Hungarian. The most significant ethnic minorities, Germans, 1.2%. Roma, 1.1% -5%. Romanians, 0.8%. Jews, 0.5%. Slovaks, 0.4%. Croats, 0.2%. And Serbians, 0.2%. Most of believers Catholics, 51.9%. Is also community of Calvinists, 15.9%. Lutherans, 3%. Greek Catholic, 2.6%. Other Christians, 1%. Atheists -25.6%. In neighboring countries, numerous Hungarian communities, especially live in Slovakia, Ukraine, Romania, Transylvania, Serbia, Vojvodina, Croatia. In the 11th century Hungarians were converted to Christianity. In In the 16th century, most of Hungarians accepted Protestantism. However, in the 17th century, during a Counter-Reformation, Catholicism became the dominating religion. Now 64% of believers Catholics and 23% Protestants. Most of Protestants, Calvinists, the largest Calvinist denomination in Hungary, the Hungarian Reformed Church. Besides them, there are Lutherans, supporters of the evangelical Pentecostal community. Enters into the Assemblies of God. Baptists. Hungary, the parliamentary republic. Legislature, the National Assembly elected by the people for a period of 4 years. The highest representation is carried out by the President. Elnök. Elected by the National Assembly for a period of 5 years, carries out representative functions. The executive body, the government of Hungary, consisting of Minister Elnök and ministers, is appointed by the National Assembly and bears before him responsibility. Body of the constitutional supervision, the Constitutional Court of Hungary. The highest judicial authority, the Supreme Court. Legfelsőbb. Court of the Court of Appeal, judicial benches. Ítélethebla. Courts of first instance, tribunals. Törvényszék. The lowest link of the judicial system, local courts. Helyi bíróság. Courts of labor justice, labor courts. Munkahogyi bíróság. The citizens participating in consideration of lawsuits, assessors. Alnök. Body for selection of candidates for positions of judges, the State Judicial Council. Országos Bírótanács. Bodies of public prosecutors' supervision, the Supreme Prosecutor's Office. Legfőbíróság. Appeal main prosecutors' offices. Felelősségi Főgyészségek. At the level of regions, the main prosecutors' offices. Főgyészségek. At the level to a media in the capitals. Local prosecutors' offices. Helyi igazságok. At the level of districts and urban areas. Hungary is divided on 19 media area, and the capital of Budapest, equated to a media unit nuts -3. A divided media into Járos, on the cities and communities. The capital is divided into areas. Representative bodies of the cities and communities, local representations. Képviselőtestület. Chosen by the population. Executive body, the mayor. Polgármester, a polgármester. Representative bodies of areas, representations. Képviselő, képviselet. Executive bodies of areas, mayors. Representative bodies to a media éveche. Közgyűlés. Executive bodies, chairman. Hungary, the moderately developed industrial and agrarian state in which market transformations are almost completed. Hungary generally exports products of mechanical engineering and other industrial goods. The main partner in foreign trade, Germany. More than a quarter of commodity turnover of Hungary in 2006. The largest bank of Hungary, Ott Bank, having own subsidiary bank and in Russia. Currency, the Hungarian forint. Forint. Exchange filler. Filler. Issue of forint is carried out by the Hungarian National Bank. Magyar Nemzeti Bank. Dikatsa Index. A ratio between minimum and the average salary in the country. In Hungary as of December 2019. Average 406,400 HUF and the minimum card HUF makes about 36.7%. Since February 1, 2021 the minimum wage makes 167,400 HUF. 111,321 HUF net. And card HUF 145,635 HUF net. For qualified specialists. Since January 1, 2022 the minimum wage will make card HUF net. And card HUF 172,900 HUF net. For qualified specialists. Advantages. The country successfully passed to stable market economy. Low inflation. 3.2%. Member country of the Uniform Market of the EU. Rather high rates of economic growth. Above an average across the EU. And a low public debt. Below an average across the EU. Still there is rather cheap and well educated in comparison with EU countries, a labor. In the conditions of sharp falling of unemployment rate and strengthening of deficiency of labor, growth of the salary, as of 2019, doesn't restrain economic slowdown. Weaknesses. Poor source of raw materials. The biggest problem. As well as in other countries of the new members of the EU. The deficiency of able-bodied labor increasing every year and growth of number of pensioners in connection with low birth rate and high emigration of the population to other, richer EU countries that in turn forces employers to pay more the workers. Thereby artificially raising salaries that leads to an imbalance between productivity and the amount of the salary. Processing industry. The largest oil and gas company of Hungary, MOL. Automotive industry. Suzuki. Production in Esztergom. Audi. Production in Dyer. Engines IDT, Audi sedan. Robba, the plant on production of automobile components. Dyer. Mercedes-Benz, the plant to Kecskemét. Norbrams, the plant in Budapest and Kecskemét. Chemical industry. Borsodchem. Borsodom. TEK. Pharmaceutical industry. Gedeon Richter. Aegis. Foreign trade of Hungary. It is focused on EU countries. Export volume for 2017 was $98.72 billion, import $93.28 billion. Acted as the main foreign trade partners. On export. Germany minus 27.7%. Romania minus 5.4%, Italy minus 5.1%, Austria minus 5%, Slovakia minus 4.8%, France minus 4.4%, the Czech Republic minus 4.4%, Poland minus 4.3%. On import, Germany -26.2%, Austria -6.3%, China -5.9%, Poland -5.5%, Slovakia -5.3%, the Netherlands -5%, the Czech Republic -4.8%, Italy -4.7%, France -4%. In structure of goods of foreign trade, final industrial goods prevail, in particular are exported, vehicles and spare parts, electrotechnical and electronic components and products, medicines and other chemical goods, and also the processed food products and textile products. Mainly various semi-finished products, spare parts, and also oil, gas, metal rolling and food are imported. Armed forces of Hungary underwent considerable reforming and reduction after the end of Cold War. Now they consist of two childbirth, ground forces and air force. In Hungary, ground forces are also known as the case of defenders of the fatherland. Honvesig. This term was used in 1848, then the Revolutionary Army Lajos was called. Now it concerns the Hungarian soldiers in general. After accession to NATO, the country passed to new standards in the field of arms and the organization of army. Since 2004, the general compulsory military service is cancelled, transition to professional army took place. The main state radio company, the Hungarian Radio. Magyar Radio. The main state TV company, Magyar Televízió, supervision of management of the Hungarian Radio and the Hungarian Television, carries out Mediasavat. Mediatanics. Culture. Hungary, the homeland of the Rubik's Cube. Main article. Culture of Hungary. The football national team of Hungary took the second place in the Third World Cup, 1938, and the Fifth World Cup, 1954, twice. On the Autodrome de Hungaroring, near Budapest. Since 1986 is traditionally carried out a World Cup stage, Formula 1. Higher educational institutions, the universities having 3 academic degrees, the bachelor, a lap, the master, mester, and the doctor, doctori. Average special educational institutions, vocational schools, Szkola. Average general educational institutions, gymnasiums, gymnasium. Educational institutions of primary education, elementary schools, Általános Iskola. Holidays. The Hungarian Maslenitsa, which came to Hungary from Germany. Easter. Christmas. Day of Saint István, the main public holiday of Hungary, which is celebrated on August 20. It is considered that this day the first king of Hungary, István, who possesses a merit of introduction of Christianity in the country, was crowned. It is noted since 1083 after István's canonization. The day of the Hungarian Revolution of 1848 is celebrated on March 15. This day, the Hungarian Spring, began the national liberation movement of Hungarians for independence from Habsburg, which developed into War Mines, Austria. The Labor Day, on May 1. The day of declaration of the Republic in Hungary is celebrated on February 1. Isn't a public holiday, but remains important memorial for residents of the country. This day anniversary of formation of the Second Hungarian Republic is celebrated. 1946-1949. Zoltán Tildy was elected its president. The national holiday in memory of the Hungarian Revolt is celebrated on October 23 in memory of events of 1956. At the same time is Day of Declaration of the Hungarian Republic in 1989. In astronomy. In honor of Hungary, the asteroid 434. Hungary opened in 1898 is called. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.